All right, so first thing we said we were going to do was go back and look at some of the material that we've been working on because we want to spiral it. We want to come back to it and make sure that we have mastered it. Not just that we can do it, but that we own this stuff. So let's have you work on the first two questions, and then I'll go over the answers to the first two. We'll do the third one, which happens to look like number 5 after that. So try the first two, we'll stop and start. Okay, so first one, what's the slope in the y-intercept? Do you notice a problem here? In order to know what the slope and the y-intercept are, the equation for the line has to say y equals. If it doesn't say y equals, you cannot do the slope and the y-intercept for that particular line. So the way I get it to say y equals is the y is being multiplied by -2. So I divide by -2. That gives me y equals -5/2 x plus 3, because the -6, remember we're always peeking in front, divided by the -2 is +3. So the slope, see it went nuts here. Watch my cursor, ready? It says the slope is -5/2. It kind of wraps around here, sorry about that. Slope is -5/2, the y-intercept is 3. Next one, write the equation of a line. This time we do it backwards. Last time I gave you the line, I asked you for the slope and the y-intercept. This time I'm giving you the slope and the y-intercept. I'm asking you for the line. So write the equation of a line whose slope is -1/4 and whose y-intercept is 2. That would be y equals -1/4 x, because the slope is always found in front of the x. Remember, y equals mx plus b, and the y-intercept b is the 2 at the end. All right, so now we're going to do a little stop and start with what's the third question on the page, but it says number 5, a little bit of that perimeter rectangle question we've done so much of this year that really, I think and hope, has helped you with word problems. Go ahead. Okay, so I assume you did stop and start. Anytime we have a problem with a geometric shape, we always like to draw a figure. And in this case, I would suggest that you underline the important stuff. I did not, but we've done it many, many times this year, and I suggest you do it. First off, it says find the dimensions. It doesn't say find the area, so I just need the length and the width of a rectangle whose length is 7 less than twice the width. So if I let the width be w, then the length is 7 less than twice the width, 2w minus 7. And remember, when you see more than or less than, last shall be first, first shall be last. Switch the order. So if I do the left side, that's the w, plus the top, the 2w minus 7, plus the right side, which is also w, plus the bottom, which is also 2w minus 7. I get the whole perimeter of 46. I take a look at this guy. It is a same side, same operation situation. So I gather my like terms together. 1 and 2 w's is 3 w's, and another 1 and another 2 w's is 6 w's. -7 and -7 is 14. Once I get it to this stage, man oh man is it easy. Adding 14 to both sides, 6w is equal to 60, dividing by 6, and I get, yes, the w, the width is 10. The length we said was 2 times the width minus 7, so 2 times 10 minus 7 is 13. I am done. Because the question said find the dimensions. A lot of time I'd ask what the area is, just to give you more and more work to do. This is just find the length and the width, and I did that. Okay, let's do a little more review. Okay, in case you had difficulty with any of those line questions, we got a couple more of them to do there. And another equation that'll give you some memories of distributing, same side, opposite side, all wrapped up in a single problem. So let's have you do all 3 of these, doing stop and start. Go ahead. Okay, so Johnny says that the line 2y equals 3x minus 4 has a y-intercept of 4. Is that true? If it's false, explain why. It's definitely false. At first glance, it looks like -4 is the y-intercept. However, we look carefully over here. It does not say y equals. It's not in proper format. It says 2y equals. So I have to divide everything by 2. And when I do that, the negative 4 divided by 2 is going to give me negative 2. So no, you have to divide everything by 2 to make the equation say y equals mx plus b. The correct y-intercept is, it says 2. It should say negative 2. Sorry about that. All right, write the equation of a line with the same. Well, you know what? Now's a moment where I can teach you that I have learned my own weaknesses. So one of the things that I frequently do wrong is I'll say that I should correct that, and I don't. So I'm going to take people who watch the video to realize I did it correctly. And I'll also straighten out this mx plus b over there. So one of the things about the process that I have learned with myself is I need to do things right away. Because if I don't, all right, so we went over that first answer, and now it looks good and is fully correct. Next question, even though it says number 1, it's the second one here. Write the equation of a line with the same y-intercept as this first guy, but parallel to the second guy. So let's talk y-intercepts first. What's the y-intercept of this line, y equals negative 3x plus 2? Well, that y-intercept is 2. So I know the new line has to have the same y-intercept, so it's also 2. But it's parallel to this other line. So what do we know about parallel lines and slopes? Well, what we know is that the slopes are the same. So I have to have y equals 2/7 x, because the 2/7 is a matching slope. So my correct answer, here's my y-intercept, that I notice. There's my slope, that I notice. And my correct answer is y equals 2/7 x plus 2. Last but not least, solve for the variable in the equation. Okay, so step 1, distribute the 4. 4x plus 4 equals 5x, plus 5x equals x minus 12. Now I see a same side going on here with my x's, so I'm going to get 9x plus 4 equals x minus 12. Well, now I see an opposite side. And we normally like to start with the x's. It's not mandatory, but I like to start with the x's. And I always want to start with the smallest x's. Smallest x's is a positive x, so I do a negative x. That gives me 8x plus 4 is negative 12. Now it's standard two-stepper, opposite sides with the numbers. I subtract 4 from both sides. I get 8x is negative 16. Dividing by 8, and I get x is equal to negative 2. Okay? So there are 3 more review questions. Why am I doing this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. But one of them is the fact that we have a final exam coming up in maybe 3, 5, maybe about 7 or 8 more classes. And you know every one of these questions on this card in some way, shape, or form is going to be on that final exam. Also with the last card we just did. So if I would have taught this on just a single day and I never came back to it, I wouldn't expect you to remember that any more than if I did carpentry once in my life and I took out a window. I would not remember later how to put a window in. I just wouldn't do it. So it's this need to come back and spiral and hit it every day. Those teams that I coached that were so successful, every team I ever coached, we had these things called DBDs, stood for Daily Basic Drills. They were the things that if you broke a baseball game down to, it's the thing that comprised 80 to 90% of the game. If you broke down a wrestling match, it comprised 80 to 90% of the wrestling match. If you played a soccer game, 80 to 90% of the game was played doing these basic things. And then, once we had the basics down pat, we only needed to specify the last 10 to 20% based on the team or based on the chapter or based on the unit. Okay, here's the next card to do. We're going to do some factoring, we're going to do some interval notation, and we're going to find a slope. So, a little stop and start here. Answer those questions. Number 22 in the middle there, that's a multiple choice question. That's not 3 different questions. And then there's three factors on the top and 1 slope finding on the bottom. Go ahead, do stop and start. All 3. I will go over all 3 in a minute. Okay, so the first factoring. X minus 8 times x plus 3. I can't believe I screwed that up and it looks like that. But that's not such a bad mistake. Next factoring, they actually share a common factor. It's x. So I get x times x plus 7. The last one, Now the first one wasn't bad, right? It's AM. 2 numbers multiply out to negative 24, add up to negative 5. And you could do it in the calculator, right? Y1 would equal negative 24 divided by x. Y2 would be that in parentheses plus x. Look for negative 5 in the last column. But C is a whole different ballgame because there is no common factor and there's a 2 in front. So this is not a simple thing to do, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is take the 2, the leading coefficient of 2, and I'm going to take it, I'm going to multiply it by the last 2. And that gives me x squared plus 5x plus 4. We are far from done. Now I'm going to factor that, which should be pretty easy, right? 2 numbers multiply out to 4, add up to 5, and that's 4 times 1. But if I did, which I did do, if I take this 2 in the front and I multiply it at the back, and I get a 4, I have to divide that 2 back in again to make up for the fact that I multiplied by it. This 2 on the right is not exactly underneath. Boy, they were when I wrote this out. I don't know why it's not now. So on the right, it can be reduced. 4 over 2 equals 2. So I'm going to reduce that to x plus 2. And on the left, it can't be reduced. So like an improper fraction being converted to a mixed number, I'm just going to take the 2 times the x. And that gives me a final answer of 2x plus 1 times x plus 2. A little sloppy looking with the alignment there, but I do know you know how to do that, and you got the gist of what it is that's going on there. Okay, number 22, which interval notation represents negative 4 to 3? Now, remember the difference between a parenthesis and a bracket. A bracket, if you take the top of the bracket and the bottom of the bracket, you get an equal sign. So if you're allowed to equal it, you get a bracket. With a parenthesis, you're not allowed to equal it because there are no top and bottom making equal signs out of it. So I want a strictly less than symbol on the left, and I want a less than or equal to on the right. And that looks to me like choice D. Oh, why is this not going? Well, it should be going. There you go, choice D right there. Excellent. Okay, last but not least, find the slope of the line. Slope formula is y from the second point minus y from the first point minus the x from the second over x from the second minus x from the first. And it doesn't matter which point's the first and the second. All this stuff about second points and first points, all that means is the order stays the same. So I'm actually going to start with a 5 this time. So I'm going to do 5 minus negative 8. Think of it as going left to right with the y's. And the x's, I'm going to do negative 2 minus 4. 5 minus negative 8 is 13. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. So my correct slope is negative 13 over 6. Now, I just want to remind you of the biggest mistake that I see made when students find slopes. The biggest mistake that I see made is I see that students have a habit, not a habit, but occasionally, they put the x's in the top. And I can understand why, because your whole life x's come before y. But in this case, the y definitely comes before the x in any slope formula. So the y's have to go on top and the x is on the bottom. Okay? All right. Now we're about ready to start the new lesson. So that means I'm going to end the previous video, or this video, and then we'll pick up the next video with the new lesson.